The 2020 South Australian state budget was an unusual budget for unusual times. It sought to address two different horizons. One, the short-term impact of coronavirus stimulus, and another, long-term legacy building and addressing the future. Given that the landscape seems to be constantly shifting by the weeks and by the months, it's a difficult thing to do. I would say on a macro level, the budget ticked most of the boxes it needed to. So a $4 billion economic stimulus package and infrastructure measures are the centrepiece of the budget, and a lot of attention has been brought to the fact that South Australian state debt is now going to rise to in excess of $30 billion, which is far above what it was even during the state bank crisis. It makes sense within the architecture of the South Australian psychology to be worried about debt given what's happened in the past, but I think if we remove the emotion from it, there's very few budgets very few governments which are not going to be impacted and taken into deficit by these measures. Yes, South Australia relies more heavily on federal government funding, but equally with low interest rates, I would be pretty confident that the debt should be serviceable. And beyond all of that, I think it was the right thing to do. I think it was the only thing to do. The Reserve Bank has encouraged state governments to basically loosen the purse strings and invest money in the economy. Cash grants to small businesses and not-for-profits are going to be most welcome, and extending those to some sole traders is going to help a lot of businesses to deal with short-term cash flow issues that might otherwise arise in terms of paying ongoing operating expenses. The state government's also going to essentially partner with the federal government to promote eligible new apprentices and trainees, which is something that is necessary in a time when you've got a lot of young people coming to the workforce who don't have the same available opportunities they may have done in the past. Pitcher Partners was delighted and was indeed hoping to see the payroll tax holiday continued for small businesses to July 2021. Anything that encourages employment and reduces potential and barriers to keeping people in employment is to be welcomed. Of course, for larger businesses, the payroll tax deferral, which is estimated to have a positive cash flow impact of $180 million, is most welcome. There will still be businesses who are concerned about impending cash flow issues when those liabilities do fall due and payable. Obviously, everybody is hoping that we're closer to the end of the COVID pandemic than we are to the beginning. None of which is to say that state tax reform should ever be off the agenda, and there are certainly positive things that can be done. Even if you take the subject of payroll tax, there are opportunities to improve the operation of the system. The challenge is there's really no give without take, and I think the government gets concerned that as soon as you start introducing new law, that has the potential to make people nervous, and at the moment it's great to see that we've got some business confidence, but that confidence is fragile. So it didn't surprise me that there was no further state tax reform. Would it be welcome? Yes, in the future, but it feels like a first world problem at the moment. At the moment, let's focus on getting out of this difficult situation we find ourselves in. So infrastructure is every government's endeavour to balance those short-term and long-term needs. Now, of course, it has its drawbacks because while construction may inspire confidence in the community, it can take a long time to actually get those boots on the ground. And so is the case this time. While it's estimated that the North-South Corridor project is going to employ 4,000 people, those jobs won't be created in the next 12 months. In terms of from a personal perspective, it is nice to see that we've got some resolution of that project, and it looks like there's going to be hundreds of houses saved, the Theberton Theatre being preserved from destruction, and it's estimated that the corridor will take over 100,000 cars off the route from Gawler to Noarlunga and potentially save upwards of 20 minutes of travel time for people. So from a social perspective, all very, very positive. I think it's true to say that a picture can change depending on the angle you're looking at it from, and the same is true of this budget. I think there are questions that the budget raises which wouldn't have been the case if this was purely an emergency short-term measure. A lot of people will say that South Australia needs to grow by perhaps upwards of 300,000 people over the next decade. So a little bit more vision might have been appreciated. If we think about it, South Australia is coming from a very positive place. We've had a successful response to COVID so far, and we have a great place to live. So I think measures such as the fast-track development of the Line Zero Factory of the Future initiative, which will promote advanced manufacturing in South Australia, are welcome. I think it's safe to say that coming into the state budget, the state government was probably feeding off a lot of community goodwill in the sense of the fact that we've been able to manage the COVID-19 impact so far without a great deal of drama. And I think in that sense, there was probably a temptation to say, let's deal with short-term measures and not rock the boat too much in terms of broader tax reform. And I think largely the measures that have been taken will be welcomed in the sense that it includes community spend, it includes infrastructure, and it also includes some short-term measures to support businesses and community, which are welcome measures indeed.